Good afternoon, everyone. Live from Silicon Valley, California, this is Spiritual Fitness with your host, Vaish, a veteran Bhakti yogi, author, and former monk, and myself, JM. Spiritual Fitness is a program dedicated to exploring the timeless texts and practices of Bhakti Yoga for people who want wisdom in their everyday life. We have close to 20 members on Zoom and more than 50 members on Facebook who are watching. I have Shweka helping me out in managing social media today. Good afternoon, Vaish. Welcome to Spiritual Fitness.
Thanks, JM. What a nice warm welcome. I'm really happy to be here and good to see everybody. Wolf, I haven't forgotten about your question about Alan Watts, but I haven't gotten around to it yet. But I haven't forgotten either. And Badari, Denise, Evan, Jean, JS, Juan, Komala, Chris, Lisa, Manish, Miriam, Monica, Muktas, Roseanne, RW. Oh boy, they're coming in so fast now. Shweka, there's Shweka. Boy, I lost track here now. Wendy, good to see everybody. Sheila, welcome back. Thanks for coming. Yes, as I mentioned, it's a special Halloween edition because it lends itself so well to this conversation we've had ongoing for some time about who we are, what's our real position. Josh, great to see you. So lately I've been walking around my neighborhood because I take a walk morning and evening. And in my neighborhood, there's quite a bit of decoration in the neighborhood. A lot of people get really gussied up here for Halloween. And I just been thinking a lot about the skeletons and the masks and also, the costumes and so forth. So it kind of prompted this topic for today of how we wear masks. There's been a lot written and talked about this psychologically, and certainly from the point of view of yoga psychology. Yoga really meaning the overarching practice in life through which we connect to our original conscious source. Actually, in a book I'm writing right now, I've been consulting with scholars who have traced the history of yoga back to the Rig Veda, which is thousands of years old, and it's a course through history. And interestingly, it's taken a lot of twists and turns, and the normal image that the word yoga conjures in one's mind nowadays, I suspect, is the asanas and the kind of way that we really get limber and in shape and so forth. And many teachers actually have a spiritual component that goes with it. Some don't. But oftentimes when I say yoga, people think of the asanas. Stretching, being in a certain pose. Ultimately, that was a component and is mentioned in the thousands of years old literatures like the Yoga Sutras that I've been quoting from, but Patanjali barely mentions it. He's the author of Yoga Sutra. He says that it's really so you can be comfortable. And why? So you can think, introspect, meditate, which is so beneficial. In fact, I was just talking to a friend a couple of days ago who's a meditation instructor, and he was giving me a lot of the current scientific research into meditation. Those who take a little time every day to introspect, to get into that place where the brain isn't jumping from one place to the next, banging against the window. Like I see sometimes there are insects that come in here like flies and they zip around and they bang into things. Here's the door, you can go out. And oftentimes the mind can be like that, can't it? And so to be able to go inwardly and calm the mind and so forth has benefits, interestingly, not just mentally, but also physically. It translates out into our physical bodies. And that's something we've been talking about a lot through Patanjali, where he says that what we have on the outside is merely a manifestation of what's on the inside. Everything evolves in our life from the subtle level to the gross level. That's a recurring topic here, isn't it? We talked about it in the gardening metaphor. Plant a seed, grows into a particular thing. You plant a thought, it grows into a particular habit or action, and that determines where we're going in our life and so forth. So looking into the masks that we wear seemed appropriate for Halloween, as it does seem to be a relief sometimes to wear a mask around, doesn't it? Halloween, who are you? And it's like nobody knows. So, let's relate that to our practice that we're all doing here. Those of you who are familiar with this, we'll show a few slides in a few minutes, talking about the philosophy that goes along with it, both psychologically, modern psychological theory, as well as the teachings of the ancient Vedic text, which is interestingly parallel in many ways. In fact, it's remarkable because although ancient mystics didn't have the same kind of technological tools and instruments that we have now, so many of their conclusions about the universe match up very closely. And how did that happen? That's kind of an interesting topic. So first of all, while we have the chance, let's do some introspection and just mindfulness and a little meditation. And let's close our eyes, sit up a little straighter than you were just a second ago, and it brings your mind to an alert place. And bring your attention to your breath. And keep your mind alert. That means you have to be present. Don't drift off into sleep, because that's not meditation, that's something else. It's a different state of consciousness. Sleep is a particular state. But this state means to be alert and keep control of where you're placing your awareness. And for now, place it on your breath. And relax into it and just breathe, because every cell in your body breathes with you. And by regulating your breath, you can bring your mind to a more peaceful state. And as you're inhaling, you can mentally say in. And when you exhale, mentally say out. And keep bringing your mind back to your breath. The mind will wander away, but you, the observer of the mind, can gently guide it back to where you want it to be. You're in charge of your awareness and where you place it. So now as you're breathing, try this experiment and become aware that you're aware. You're a unit of awareness, according to the Bhagavad Gita. You're not your material body, and that includes the subtle body, which is the mind, which is an instrument made of energy that is inferior to what you are. You're non-neural, non-chemical, non-temporal, a sentient organizing particle. And you can become aware of your mind, your intelligence, and you can also become aware of your own awareness. So now as you're keeping your awareness on yourself, on your very existence, notice for a minute that you do exist and just marvel in it. Just, I exist. Descartes said, I think, therefore I am. You're aware, therefore you are. You exist. And now, notice that you have a body. You can notice, first of all, your hands. Bring your awareness to your feet, to your abdomen, and move it to your head. And notice that in the round, these are all appendages. You have a face. That face is changeable, interchangeable. If you have the technology, you could just switch it out. But it wouldn't change who you are because you're the person behind the face or the mask. And you're also the person behind the body. What's more, you're the person behind the subtle body, which is the psychological body. The mind and the intellect are also a body that's not you and also acts as a mask. What you are is something that is from another dimension. Being aware of your awareness is a nourishing state, brings in energy, perspective, and being aware that your mind is not yourself, and therefore the reflection that you see on your mind, which is the world around you, which you can interpret as you, your house, your car, your family, and so forth, your nation, your sports team. These are all reflections from the outside world called your life situation, and these are not you either. You're the observer of those things, and you can choose not to identify with them. This is the Brahman conception mentioned in all the ancient literatures, meaning Aham Brahmasmi means I am spirit, I am not matter. I am beyond the fetters of matter, the clunkiness of matter, even when it's very subtle. And just stay in this awareness of yourself being separate from the mind, from the intellect, and from the body. And breathe and just stay there. And I'll be quiet for a few moments and just stay there. And now, as an aid to our meditation, I'm going to add a mantra, one syllable mantra, Om. And you can follow along with me behind a muted mic. You may notice when you do your meditations that the mind can become restless after some time, and you think, oh, let me get up, let me go answer an email, I need some ice cream, whatever it may be. But if you add the mantra, you'll have an ally. And if you can become aware of your awareness and then invoke the mantra, you'll find strength, inner strength, and a resonance with the mantra that will uplift your consciousness, and you'll be able to stay in that meditative state for much longer by the power of mantra. It's introducing a higher energy into your consciousness. Now bring your awareness back to your breath and add some gratitude, an extremely powerful emotion, appreciation that you have breath. You can put your hands together and make some friction and gradually open your eyes, come back into the Zoom room. And now let's look at a few slides. Oh, a question from Evan. Does the key of the Om mantra matter? No, it doesn't. I picked a key that I hoped that would match the range of most people. But I'd like to hear from you if it did. It's about as low as I can go, but oftentimes others that have a higher pitch and they're okay. Carrie said it's okay. And how did you feel, Evan?
Yeah, I loved it.
Okay, good.
I was just curious because if I didn't have your pitch or whatever when I'm doing it myself, if I hit a different key, would it matter?
Yeah. Just so you know, it's an A for those of you who are oriented towards a keyboard.
Thank you.
Okay, and I made a fifth out of it, so it's an A and an E. Yes. Okay, so I'm going to introduce a few concepts to tie together this metaphysical philosophy. Meta meaning above, beyond. Physical. Metaphysical means what's beyond that which is physical, which is of great interest to us because we are not physical. That's my thesis I'm putting forward on behalf of the Vedic literatures. So masks, why do we wear them? And I'm referring to masks as all the different ways we do it psychologically and physically. First of all, before we go any further, let's just see if anybody resonates with this idea. Do we wear masks? And I'm not talking about Halloween masks that you go out as a zombie, although that's an unusual occasion when we get that opportunity to really go for it and put on all kinds of costumes and be somebody else. But do we do it, in your opinion? And you can put it in the chat box or speak up here. Do we do it?
I think. Yes.
Let's name a few ways. Anna, what are you thinking? What are some of the ways that we do it?
Okay. Sometimes it is the social pressure to be part of something, or do you want to be part of something?
Yeah.
So then you even go contrary to what you want, or try to look similar to the others to be accepted. So that's why we wear a mask.
Oh, that's so good. That's really important, how we wear masks. You know what it brought to my mind when I was in grammar school? The most popular kid in school was Steve Swearingen. He was a great athlete and he was good looking, everybody popular. You know how important that is in grammar school sometimes. And I remember I wanted to dress like Steve Swearingen. I had to have the same kind of jeans, and he used to turn them up at the bottom, and you know, he'd wear as I tell my mother, I gotta wear Steve Swearingen jeans. and and I remember I told her, I think I changed my name to Steve, and she said, why? Because I want to be like Steve Swearingen. So I can remember very vividly that kind of social pressure. You want to look, and that can be a kind of mess. Thanks, Anna. That was great. What else? What other kind of masks do we wear?
So we have Carrie who says being egotistical, and as R. Salzar, yes, to hide feelings, sadness, and depression.
Yeah, there was a song by Smokey Robinson called "The Tears of a Clown." You remember that?
Mm-hmm.
It talked about the clown. You remember? Okay, great. Yeah, and that was a kind of profound song, talking about very melancholy in a way. The tears of a clown, and wear a mask. I don't know the lyrics exactly, but it, you know, was about, I'm wearing this face, I'm smiling, I'm the life of the party, but inside I'm crying. So I'm trying to show
Yeah.
myself something I'm not.
No, so I
Yeah.
think that we wear masks because we are afraid to be vulnerable, and then the people may hurt us. So we have a mask to look like we are stronger, or we don't want to show that we are feeling vulnerable inside.
So to make up for certain kinds of insecurities, I'll act in certain ways. That's a kind of a mask, right?
Right.
Nice, nice. You don't happen to be a
Mask versus
psychologist, do you? Are you a psychologist?
Nope. I'm an
Okay,
engineer.
you
I'm an
think like
engineer.
one anyway. Somebody else was going to say something.
yeah, I was going to say mask versus role. With the different roles like dad, mom, with spouse, friends, work. I seem to see like with most of these roles, is it like some mask comes up or something like that, so there are like some are very apparent, like some are very subtle, but like something sure comes up with a role.
Nice, Badri. Nice. This is really good. Expanded the whole concept and conversation. And along with those roles, we have different names, right? Every one of us has a numerous names. For instance, if you're going with your passport, you have your passport name, but your friends will call you something else, right? And maybe your
Yeah.
mother has a nickname for you, or your spouse, your best friends call you something. And these are roles we shift into at various times. We act like this, and other times we act like that. I know in the Japanese language, there's several different layers of presentation according to who you're talking to, because there's normal, casual, polite, then super polite when you speak, and then there's super polite when you're talking. It just because you have different roles in society, right? And these we're always adjusting. Yeah, good. All right,
Really,
Sheila,
that
go
really
ahead.
resonated with me. What came up for me was I have 3 children, and my 2 oldest are in their 20s now. And when they were in high school, I'll never forget them telling me, "Mom, you're like a different person when you're around other people." Because I was putting that polite and everything's good and I have it together, and I never really thought about it until my kids brought it to my attention. So yeah.
Brilliant point, Sheila.
That.
Brilliant point. Yeah. Yeah. So this behind those we feel comfortable, more vulnerable. Somebody brought that up. Maybe it was Anna, when we were able to show ourselves more, we kind of let go, let that guard down that will show in public. I'm fine. Everything's good. Right. And we constantly are shifting between one and the other. And to address what you said, Badri, about the roles from the Vedic text point of view, we have dharmas. There are various dharmas that we follow, and means different positions in life that we're responsible for. And in each one of those, we may have a different role to play, the way that we're doing it, and we switch from one to the next.
And there is a 6 thinking hat methodology. You have white hat, red hat, black hat, and so this is to look at something, in a focused way, using the available data. So that's again having a masks on some objective way. So the green hat means, it represents creativity, and the blue hat means it's a process control, and red hat means, using a problem and intuition. So this is a methodology I think people use to the.
But for me, mask is when you want to put a mask on, you're trying to hide something and portray something else. But when I'm doing a certain role, like for example, somebody said mother, father, or a spouse or a teacher, I think it's different parts of our consciousness that we are bringing forth rather than hiding what we have. I think that's, to me, comes in when I think of a role rather than a mask. So I don't know. Maybe you want to elaborate and help me understand that a little bit.
I think it's an important nuance that you brought out. Very important nuance, and there are subtleties to it. I'll bring it hopefully to a point in these slides where, in a utilitarian way, we can categorize both roles and masks in a similar way for the purposes that I'm going to point out. But for the way you brought it up is very important also, because we do have to move around in the world. And this is described in the spiritual texts as we have 2 different goals in life. One is called paramartika and the other is called vyavaharika. So vyavaharika means practical. There's a way that we do have to interact with various people in our different roles in the world. And as an example that I've given here before, if you go to an interview and they're asking you, well, where are you from? And you say, well, I'm from the spiritual world. They'll probably look at you askance and you won't get the job. Maybe in some corporations, I don't know, some are a little more open to that answer. And the paramartika, is something that we keep internally and amongst those who understand what we're doing and so forth. So there's that division between the two. And yeah, I like the subtle distinction you made between mask, because it can be a little more pejorative in the sense that I'm really hiding something, whereas role, as you said, is a necessity, the way I move about the world with expertise. And you can have enlightened engagement with the world as you're playing your roles, but maybe masking is not exactly the same thing. Nice point. Very subtle, very nice. That's a good segue into these, a few of these slides. So we talked about why we wear masks a little bit, and there's a syndrome. Psychology today describes an impostor syndrome, the fear that the world's going to find us out. And it's possible that there are thoughts I have going on internally. We talked about some scars. We have impressions, the way we've been treated before, upbringing. We may be fully confident, or we may have ideas like, I'm a fake, I don't really belong amongst these people, I'm not really successful. And interestingly, even amongst very successful people, oftentimes there's a syndrome that I'll talk about in a couple of minutes with fame. People become very famous, but inside they're thinking, I'm getting so much adulation, but I don't belong in this role. This is not me. I'm not successful. I'm a fake. And that can be very trying, actually. So we're looking at the psychological masks that cover our insecurities. So these are fear that are listed in psychological circles in a very general way. Name dropping or living a lifestyle above one's means may be a way of masking what's going on with my life, really. And maybe I'm in debt, or maybe I have this idea that I need to show myself as being more successful. Sometime, someone might get a car that's more expensive, can't afford it, but they need it to show this is where I am in life. I've arrived. In fact, that's how marketing works oftentimes, is to stimulate that idea of one's insecurity and say, you can fix this. If you just have the right car and you show up, it's blatant actually. A lot of that's advertising. There's an excellent documentary about this, about Sigmund Freud's nephew, who created modern day public relations that then became advertising and so forth. And it really plays on these insecurities. Then if somebody's really a weakling inside and they're insecure, they might bully others. Victimhood is another way of masking certain kinds of emotions, anger also. Many insecurities. So these are from some research I did about celebrities. It kind of fascinates me. What do we actually get when we become famous? It seems as if it could be a glamorous type of lifestyle, but it can be a mask also. Here are some of the, yes, Evan.
Sorry for interrupting.
Not at all.
You just reminded me of a quote that I heard.
Hola
recently.
Adri, sorry por la tardanza, es que se me fue. Hola.
Sorry, you just reminded me of a quote that I saw recently from Jim Carrey, that he said, "I wish everyone could get rich and famous and everything they ever dreamed of, because so they can see that it's not the answer."
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that. It's excellent. In fact, I saw an interview with several very famous celebrities, and they were all discussing. Ted Danson was there, and the character who played Fonzie back in the whenever that was, the 70s, and others who were there, and they were all discussing what it was like to have to live with that kind of mask on, that this is who I am. Yeah, and some of these statements are coming from Jim Carrey and others who have been in that position. Yeah. Nice point, Evan.
Thank you.
Okay, let's look at some of the sentiments they have when they have that.
So I just want to say, Bim Bear says Henry Winkler. I think that's what you're referring to.
Yes, thank you very much, Henry Winkler. Yeah, and the feelings that come when you're famous, and then all of a sudden you're not. You know, how do you deal with that? Hey, here I am, but nobody really cares anymore. That's very distressing situation. So some said, I feel like an animal in a cage, a toy in a shop window, a Barbie doll, a public facade. A facade really means, obviously, you know, the front of a building. It can be a really crummy building, but if the front looks good, no problem. Clay figure, that guy on TV, you know, that's my identity. Who are you? Oh, you're that guy, you know, do that thing. Come on, be that guy. And that's sort of, you know, social pressure augmented, right? And there's a lot of feelings: isolation, mistrust, lack of personal privacy, character splitting, which I just described between the celebrity self and the authentic self. So I just thought I'd add that in there just to show the dichotomy between our, you know, who are we and what gets projected outwardly. So I fear that if I show what's behind my mask, someone will say, oh, it's just you. Like, I need to keep this facade up because I fear. And somebody mentioned that earlier. I think, Anna, there's some fear there that what if somebody actually sees who I really am? So here's some reasons to shed our masks. One is, who and what you really are is better than any persona you can invent. And this is a theme that I've talked about quite a bit. Beyond the body, beyond the current mind we have, which is really on loan, it's incidental, is our self, the Atma, that is something that's so amazing. And it's so edifying just to be in awareness of one's actual self. That the Bhagavad Gita describes, if one is able to glimpse at one's real identity beyond the body, beyond the mind, then one feels a completeness, a wholeness that you can't fill in with any kind of masking or with getting another thing. When you get another thing to fill that void, you need another thing. And it leads to so many endeavors that are unnecessary, but finding out one's real identity and seeing it, the Brahman, or the spiritual conception of who we are, is completely satisfying. The other reasons, it's draining trying to be someone you're not. It's really hard keeping up the facade. Those who really depend on how they look to be appreciated, that takes a lot of hard work, doesn't it? And maybe even if that's your profession to model or to show yourself, but we all have some way in which we're trying to show something we're not, and it's difficult. It's a lot of work. I know now at home, sometimes you don't have to dress up or look like anything because, of course, too bad for the cameras, right? Maybe, but when you're behind the scenes, I notice a lot of people, they don't get dressed up with suit and tie and everything like that to try to show. Of course, nobody does nowadays anyway, but you don't have to try as hard, and maybe it's a kind of a relief in some ways. And finally, relationships can't be truly whole until we feel vulnerable enough to show our real selves. Isn't it a strain to have a relationship with somebody and have to keep up or not reveal who you really are? Or put it the positive way, if you have a relationship that's so open that you can actually show what your foibles are and who you really are to such a person, boy, isn't that a good friend? I mean, and is that rare? It's a fairly rare situation to have somebody like that. Otherwise, I know, do I want to reveal these faults to other people? Of course, if you reveal them, then there's to the right person at the right time, there's a chance by bringing the light of consciousness to it that you can overcome it. But, oftentimes when people have difficulties, habits they're trying to overcome, they go to a particular group and are able to stay anonymous so nobody else knows about it. And then, in that support group, they're able to talk about it and actually come to grips with it. Otherwise, there's a mask in front of it. And it's like, I'm okay. I don't want to show it. And that's a difficult situation. So all of this in the yoga literatures will say is being out of balance. And it causes a mental strain, physical strain. It really wears us out trying to be something we're not. Fanny Bryce says, let the world know you as you are, not as you think you should be, because sooner or later, if you are posing, you will forget the pose. And then, where are you? And another quote, E.E. Cummings. The greatest battle we face as human beings is the battle to protect our true selves from the self the world wants us to become. So there's that interaction also, that expectations of who we're supposed to be.
Do you mind if I ask you a question here?
No, I'm delighted, actually.
Okay.
Please.
You said that you should be yourself, and I totally understand that aspect. But there are certain groups. Say, for example, you are a harried mom. You are having a hectic day. Yes, you can be yourself. You can be chaotic, and then how does that help when you say to others? For example, if I have a group of a community, my sharing is only going to benefit me and not going to benefit them. I want a group that is solution oriented to share my authentic feelings so that everybody can benefit, right? So I'm having trouble understanding that aspect, that okay, if I'm chaotic, I should appear chaotic to everybody, or if I'm feeling sad, I should appear sad to everybody. But that sadness is not going to, it's not solution space, is what I'm trying to understand here. So maybe you can help me.
Well, in a sense, this group we have here, we've been meeting for years in different places. Of course, now it's an unusual situation. We're all kind of merged together from different places. But the conversation going on here and the kind of environment we're trying to create here is there's a safe environment. we're amongst like-minded people who are interested. And, there's a chance that we can start, bringing things up, talking about them in a group like this. Or, in the yoga literatures, it's mentioned a sangha. A sangha means or satsanga means a group that you can meet with where you can actually reveal things and bring them out. And it should be a safe environment. It's not that in talking about taking the mask down or revealing our authentic self or being vulnerable means you just go willy-nilly here and there to everybody, because there are people that will violate your privacy or not be able to appreciate what you're telling them. And so this is an important point, that one of the ways in which to be balanced and whole and actually make spiritual advancement is to find the kind of association where you can safely reveal yourself. And I've seen it, at my home here for many years. I had a gathering every week, people to come in and meet and talk. And we did some mantra meditation, chanting and things like that. I think people came from my wife's cooking, actually, but ultimately, I saw it for myself. It went on for about 15 years that I did it, and then it got too big. We had to move it to other venues, but I saw there was a process through which the people together developed trust in one another, and they could start to empathize and share. And it was very deep. And there's a way that everyone wanted to come back because they felt some shelter and a way to process what was going on. So yeah, it's not that we can do it everywhere. And we do have to have some kind of, I'm not saying, masks are all bad, but I'm saying we should be aware when we're doing it and why we're doing it. And acting from what I mentioned before, the paramartika point of view, we have an ultimate goal. Sometimes we need to protect our identity from certain elements, because there are some places where we just can't bring it out. So in those places, that's called vyavaharika, where we play the official role in that place. But for those and in that environment through which we can bring it out and process it, and it's very therapeutic and helpful to actually become, situated and understand, oh, this is my identity and this is how I can work in the world with enlightened engagement. Did that come close to?
Oh, yes. It helped me a lot. Thank you. Yeah,
Okay,
gave me a lot
great.
of clarity. Thank you.
Excellent question. Very practical and good. Yeah, I have a few more slides, but let's hear from some of you. Yeah, Badri.
Yeah, when you said it's difficult to maintain mask, that, this and all that, it got me into thinking ego is, you could consider it is a kind of mask, but it is so implicit and all that, so it's rather difficult to get rid of that mask, so where I think, ego is a different kind of mask, I guess.
Oh boy, you're taking us really deep, esoteric. So yes, and this is described, and we talked a little bit about this from Patanjali, the Yoga Sutras, because it's a analyzation of human psychology. Sometimes people call it yoga psychology. So there's an aspect called Sankhya, or counting, in which he really tries to catalog all the different aspects of our body and mind. And of course, there's the gross physical body that you can really, it doesn't take a lot of work to look at it and say, hey, wait a minute, that's not me. In fact, I remember as a kid, sometimes I'd stand in front of the mirror and turn the light on and off and watch my pupils dilate and undilate with the light and think, boy, that's like a camera. That's not me. This body is just, it's an instrument. And then, of course, then you get into the subtleties of what Patanjali describes as the mind, called manas, which has a particular nature, and then the buddhi, or the intellect, and then there's ahankar, which is ego, which is an extremely subtle element that is what is described as the bridge between us as a non-neural, non-chemical, non-temporal entity and the external physical world. How do we bridge that? It's like a virtual reality machine, really, the false ego or the ahankara. And it's, you know, you put it on and then you're able to interact with this other so-called reality. And yes, that is the ultimate masking device through which I think, oh, I am this body. I am this person. But actually, as I just said, with empiric observation, you can see that you're not. And ultimately, you know, we move on from every assumed identity we have. When I'm born, I don't immediately have a name. It takes my parents a few minutes or hours or days, and then they decide, you know, hey, your name's Willie, and then they slap a little name tag on you, and there you go. For how long, though? You know, you can change your name, and obviously you give it up when you leave the world, and you give everything else up too. So that's our really temporary identity that we're dealing with, and the ahankar is the way in which we interact with that life situation that I begin to say, oh, this is me, you know, this is my car. And it happens in many different situations. I mean, as I went, you go into this to buy a coat, and the salesperson will say, oh, that's really you. It's like, yeah, this is me, you know, because I just got my PhD and I should have a corduroy and it needs some patches on this or whatever, you know, or, you know, I once met this guy with carrying tennis rackets, and I said, oh, you're a tennis player? And he goes, no, but when I carry these around, everyone thinks I'm athletic. He was traveling, you know, on an airplane. So yeah, there's this idea that I am this thing, I'm that thing. And that's facilitated by ahankar, which is a thing. It's actually a thing. Thanks for deepening the conversation, Badri. You have a
We
knack
have a
for
question.
doing that. Yes, another question. Please go
We
ahead.
have another question on Zoom.
Yes.
The question is, will the part of how to overcome feeling imposter be covered?
Yeah, let's talk about that.
If one feels like an imposter and feels insecure, even though you've fully worked to reach the state you've reached, so how can you overcome that?
Yeah. Well, remember a couple classes ago, if you were there, we talked about this. Oh, no, it was a different class, but I'll bring it up now. There's a verse from one of the ancient books called the Upanishads. These are thousands of years old, Sanskrit, classical Sanskrit they're written in. And the invocation for the book called the Shri Upanishad, there's 108 main Upanishads, which have very pithy statements that you can take with you in your pocket and use them for enlightened engagement in the world. The invocation of the first verse in the Shri Upanishad goes, Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. That the ultimate truth is perfect and complete, and all emanations that emanate from that are also complete in themselves. And no matter how many complete units emanate from that complete whole, the complete whole remains complete. It isn't depleted. And in the commentary to that, my teacher many years ago, one of the reasons I was really attracted to this school of philosophy was the pieces all fit together for me. But this one statement I found particularly profound, in which he wrote in his commentary on this particular verse that all experiences of incompleteness are because of incomplete knowledge of the complete whole. So everything is complete, but I have this filter I'm looking through, a mask, so to speak, and I don't experience the completeness. And I do come up with these feelings of insufficiency. It's very, very common. I mean, as I mentioned, even among very accomplished people, or maybe especially because the dichotomy grows then, and everyone's like, you're a god. And I'm like, I'm nothing. I know that I can't even control my own senses. So, you know, one of the ways in which we overcome that, it can't be done really artificially. In fact, an example that's given is something that I saw before my own eyes recently, and that is with a field that grows grass. And you can cut the grass down or even burn it, but then when the next rain comes, it pops back up again. You actually have to, the seed has to be destroyed at the root in order for it not to grow again. So there are a lot of ways that I can adjust and try to not feel incomplete mentally, but it only lasts for a while. There's a deep heart and a deep rootedness that's due to a very profound, or I should say not profound, but basic, foundational misconception that I'm something that I'm not. And that can really only be addressed through sadhana or spiritual practice, through which you have direct experience of it. There's a difference between time and a clock. So in a similar way, there's a difference between philosophy and the direct experience of yourself. And so in Sanatana Dharma, which is the practice of that we're talking about, this bhakti yoga practice, it's also called Sanatana Dharma. It's the role that you have that's always valid in all circumstances, because it's who you really are. You're something besides a physical body and all these temporary designations in the world of names. And therefore, when you come to this practice, one of them that I've been suggesting since we started these classes is mantra meditation, where you actually have an opportunity to examine yourself very deeply with the assistance of the mantra. And when you do that, when you enter into these profound states of meditation, and not that you have to, sell your car and your house and go to the Himalayas, you can do this wherever you are. You have to, because there is no more space in the Himalayas, apparently. It's really jammed going up to Mount Everest these days. You have to stay where you are and experience it for yourself. So this is the way that's suggested is, first of all, mantra meditation. And then there's enlightened engagement with the world, which has to do with using the work that you already do for a higher cause. Don't do it as reward-seeking activity. Practice doing service for service. In other words, if I'm thinking I have to get ahead, I have to get more money, I have to get more stuff, it'll never end, because numbers go to infinity and you can never reach a point where you say, I've got enough. It's impossible. And however, you can feel I have enough and I am enough when you experience yourself. And one of the ways is through what's called karma yoga. Karma means work. I mean, it means many things, but it can also mean work, the work that you do. You have to work. You can't stop working. So adjust your attitude towards work and think of it as a way to do service rather than what do I get out of this? And it's profound. In fact, wasn't it yesterday, JM, on one of the classes we did, Australia, I think somebody said that they had tried this out and they were working with this mood.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And they said it was amazing, like flipping a switch. Yeah, it was one of our friends down in San Diego. And she said, yeah, I've been thinking about this as I work and dedicating my work to a higher cause, more for service, selfless service than it is reward seeking. And that's another way to overcome the insecurity and to actually directly experience the self, amazingly. Well, there's a couple more slides. So we'll do that, and then we'll take last thoughts on this, because I'm dedicated. I hope you all will appreciate that, to stopping on time from now on. Let's see if I can do it. Here's a story of the dead king and the truthful boy that comes from the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is 5,000-year-old Sanskrit literature. And this king, his name was Suyagya. You see him lying dead on the battlefield, and he's surrounded by his queens. And in the culture, when somebody would die, they burn the body. they didn't want to let go of the body or admit that he was gone. And this boy you see on the right-hand side, who is actually saintly, a very enlightened person, came and he started to question them. And he said, "Why are you crying?" And they said, our husband, the king, is gone. And he said, "How can you say he's gone? He's right there. He has the same eyes, the same hair, the same fingers, everything same." And they said, "You don't understand. He's gone." And the boy said, "No, you don't understand. You never saw the king. The person you were interacting with was not the physical frame. It was something else, and you've missed it." So in the conception of the philosophers of yoga, the entire body is a mask. And finally, we're all passing through. This is called samsara. We're moving from one mask to the next, one body to the next, and it's all being orchestrated by us because of the way we develop our consciousness. Consciousness creates our external world. And as I described in previous classes, Patanjali says that the body we get next is dependent on the way we've developed our consciousness, because the consciousness creates a mold and then it's filled in by the external or the grosser elements. And that's how samsara works, which is also called the cycle of transmigration or reincarnation. So we're going through this change constantly. The body's changing just like a river's changing, but I identify with the external body, but that's a mistake. And to those who are able to utilize the process of yoga and realize themselves, there's a great relief, which is described in the Bhagavad Gita as feeling like you've lifted if you had millions of dollars in debt and somebody paid it off, so you're immediately relieved of that situation. And so that's a direct experience. It's universal, it's non-sectarian, it's something available to every person everywhere. And it's a matter of, there are some practical ways in which to adjust one's life and some practices we call sadhana, spiritual sadhanas. We do have a program that it's kind of a light program that gives some parameters for some things that you can do. It's called Spiritual Fitness Challenge. Some of you are already doing it very intensely. And you can add some of these practices to your life, and you'll see for yourself. We're very adjustable human beings when we have the right knowledge and a practice to apply. You have to do it and see it for yourself. It's very helpful. Wolf, is this the current question? So it is a reward or a punishment? Wolf, can you say
current existence? So
our current existence?
Yeah, is it a reward in that case because we prerequisited in the previous life, right?
Well, I'll answer by giving you something Zig Ziglar would say. He said, "Don't call it an alarm clock, call it an opportunity clock." So the reason I say that is really the overarching goal mentioned in all of these ancient wisdom texts for life is refinement. And human life is especially important because it's a portal through which we have more facility to refine ourselves. And part of that refinement is interpreting whatever happens to us in a way that we learn from it. In fact, any self-help guru on the planet will say the same thing. It's not what happens to you that matters, is what you do about it that happens. And in order to do that, you have to have perspective. So a lot of what we're talking about is developing perspective so we can have enlightened interaction. So it's a reward, punishment, but the fact is it's an opportunity, whatever situation we're in, if we have the proper perspective to refine ourselves, because there's a lesson in it, always a lesson.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for the question, Wolf, really good. Well, let me just see if, oh, no problem, Rashmi, you drop off. I'm going to drop off in about a minute too, but let's do a couple of mantras. Leave, thanks everybody for coming. You don't have to drop off yet, but we'll do a couple mantras because this is something you can transport to your own home practice, and then we'll drop. So mantra meditation is sound meditation. It's sonic. You're taking sound vibration, which is the most subtle element, and when you take it from a higher realm as it's passed down, you'll energize yourself, and you're able to, by association with the mantra, elevate your consciousness and have insights you haven't had before. The first mantra, which I'm recommending, is Nitai Gauranga. And this refers to the avatars Nitai and Gauranga. And when you say the mantra, you'll be connecting to a higher stratum. And so I'm going to say the mantra several times, and then you can repeat it with me behind muted mics. And this is a cadence you can do when you're doing your mantra meditation. Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga. The next mantra is called the Maha Mantra, and it goes like this. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This is a spiritual mantra, and I'll say it a few more times. If you like, follow along at the same cadence, and you'll get an idea for the way you can practice this by enunciating it by yourself at home in a form of meditation called japa. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Small sample of mantra meditation, and these are transportable. You can try it at home, and we will have some more dedicated classes we're planning ahead for sort of those who want to go more into the mantra meditation or some of the practices. We'll have some perhaps separate classes elsewhere that you could attend, and we can go more into the technology of it and do some more prolonged mantra meditation. But it will work for you if you try it at home, and you can see for yourself. JM, I'm 3 minutes over according to my clock, but that's the best I've done in years. And thank you very much, everybody. It's been an exhilarating experience being with you. I could feel the energy coming from all of you. It was really powerful. Excellent questions, and really great to see you and hear you. And please keep the transcendental vibration going, and I'll be counting the days till I see you next time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Always a pleasure. Evan.
Thank you. Thank you very
Take care,
much.
everybody.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Thanks, Shweta.
Bye.